About time for another Coach Life, baby. What I said yesterday about murdering the transitions, being agile, being courageous when the change is upon you, converting that fear into not necessarily action, but an actionable foundation of courage. I said that yesterday, same holds true today. I was in the shower listening to motivids and just getting refreshed for the day, and I had my candle going and the lighting was perfect, and it just so happened that the motivid started to talk about Donald Trump, and they were saying something about Trump that I've been saying for a long time, which is, it doesn't matter how you feel about the person. What he does with words and ideas and people clearly shows he's a master manifester. He just makes things happen with the power of momentum. I'm not saying you should agree with anything. I mean, follow your own star in the first place. Like, you shouldn't depend on someone else to tell you who to agree with or not. But you should also be able to recognize when someone is a master manifester, when someone is a really good manifester, when someone is a bad manifester. You should be able to recognize when people are manifesting in the reverse, meaning there's so much in the subconscious at play that even though they want, what they end up getting is exactly what they don't want because they don't want it so bad. In other words, they can't focus their attention or their intention on that which they want to resonate with. So I say all that to say, even if that is confusing, here's another way to understand what I'm saying. You have a version of you which is fully present right now, that knows who you truly are and is rooting for you to make that connection so that it can play. But there are so many other versions of you which are tied to what other people think or what you think other people think, or Lord knows how deep that rabbit hole can get. And so those other versions of you are way more interconnected, therefore stronger than the version of you which is truly powerful in this space. And so the whole game in the beginning is to figure out how to return to that childlike power, which is when you're a baby or a kid, you don't worry about when you'll be fed. You don't worry about if you'll survive. You don't worry. You don't have any of the fears that the other versions of you become so dependent upon. And it's not because, well, you're a kid, you don't know any better. That's true, but you know not to attach your creative power to something which you can't control anyways. And as you become an adult, you think, well, I'm an adult, I can control more things, which is also true. But have you tried to resurrect your creative power to that extent? Maybe a third of, have you even played with the idea? Yeah. So it's something to think about. People who manifest, we need another word for that. People who make their dreams come true, they have very strong dreams. plain and simple. It's not like, oh, I would like $1 million, and then just becoming obsessive over wanting $1 million. It's more like, I remember what it felt like to be fun and free and happy. And there are these few things that I do in my life which make me feel that way. And then how much of my life force am I giving to those things? How many hours out of my day are dedicated to feeling that feeling? And then that feeling should attach to something else. So maybe you just have it stuck in your head that you want $1 million, right? Which is actually, that's not a lot of money. It really is just, it's almost funny how cliche that is today, because it's just not a lot of money. But let's say you have that stuck in your head. That's what you want to manifest. It's been there for the past 10 years. That's the type of person you are. If you only had $1 million, it would solve a lot of your problems, and therefore you could get to the next level of yourself, right? So maybe that makes sense, right? But here's the problem. You wanting the $1 million creates a block, because you know you don't have the $1 million. You know that there's things that you probably have to do. Like everyone has these like programmed ideas of what you have to do to the $1 million. Your first million is the toughest. If you want another, if you want your first million, if it's like another $1 million, it's another thing. But anyways, you're focused on that $1 million, and that block is, you're not saying it, but the unwritten law behind what you're saying is that you don't have the $1 million. And not only are you spending all your energy building a stronger block, but you also aren't spending any energy being the creative or your higher self. Whatever you, for some people, they are who they are. Like, you can literally be working sanitation, and that's who you are. That's your higher self. Like, that's what you came here to do, and you know that, and you're happy, and your life is beautiful. There's more, I would say on average, there's probably more higher self people living around or below the poverty line in countries which aren't obsessed with capitalism than there are happy people living above the poverty line in countries that are obsessed with capitalism, just in terms of resonant frequency. So I don't want to leave you with a problem and not a solution. So here's the solution. Focus on that feeling. Understand that that feeling is where your abundance lies. So if you really want $1 million, focus on the feeling of tapping into that childlike curiosity, or creativity. If you really like clothes, if you really like designing your own clothes, but you spend most of your time in somebody else's clothes, and you have a sewing machine somewhere, or you know someone who sews, and all these ideas are just kind of in the background, bring them to the foreground. Like, play with them. Really, really explore. If you have any kind of interest or calling that's in you, that's creative, that's creative is great, co-creative is even better, but it's slightly more complicated, because once you tell someone else about your idea, their fears or their preconceived notions get attached to it as well. So it's best to kind of hold it to yourself. I learned that the hard way with 49th, still learning. But yeah, tap into that energy of feeling free or having fun. It could be maybe it's playing the piano or singing, something that makes you feel like there's work to be done, but you enjoy the work and it's a creative endeavor. Tapping into that is probably, because that's the frequency which really resonates in terms of trying to maximize the time that you have in the day to feel good, right? So everything that you're doing now that's quote unquote feel good stuff, like Netflix, social media, those are actually energy drainers. They're not actually making you feel good. They're just giving you dopamine hits. And it's a placebo effect that works, unfortunately. So it's a rabbit hole. You can spend the rest of your life clicking like and following people and stuff like that. But I would suggest you detox from that. You know, it's Ramadan, perfect time to do such. Disconnect from that which feels good as a cheap thrill and quick dopamine hits, and connect with something that gives you a sense of childlike expression, because that's actually your higher self. The whatever you want to manifest, if you want that $1 million or the house or the whatever that preconceived notion is, it will come once you honor your higher self. That's a fact. That's how the universe works. So you kind of have to learn how to get out of your own way at this point. Slightly longer coach life than I wanted, but some gems here. I would say yesterday's vibe was to murder the transitions. Today it's the same thing, but we're stepping into a period of change, which is even more dynamic, and it keeps doubling down. It's not because we're being punished. It's just, if you've ever played a sport, once you see your real adversity and you're on the road to, like, you're like, okay, I don't want to feel that feeling again. Once you're on the road to championing the moment, you don't know it, but that's the actual joy. Because once you defeat the thing, or once you overcome the obstacle, once you get the gold medal or whatever, you realize, oh God, this is it. it's pretty silly. But once you decide and once you're on that road, that's actually the feeling of, oh yeah. And that's also like the childlike curiosity, just being a kid playing in the dirt, catching a snake or something and building a little snake, whatever you can do for cardboard box, snake fort. It's just little challenges that are not tied to anything other than having a good feeling inside that's not molested by strange energy and paradigms. It's almost like freedom in its purest form, because that's who you are. You're not tied to any of these things that you force yourself to believe you're tied to. Oh, what if I lose this? What if I lose that? Fear and all that stuff. You don't really have to attach to that. We do, because we're like, this is how we survive. It's like, true. We black folks, we made soul food out of old food. But that doesn't mean we should be eating chitlins in 2022. we still have to, you gotta keep going. As Don Cheadle famously said, you don't do the previous gag, you gotta do the next gag, in the Oceans movie. Anyways, this is way longer than I intended, but this Coach Life is all about murdering the transitions, manifesting, tapping into that childlike curiosity and going for it, having courage. All right, Coach Life, ciao.